It was the ingredients that it took to bake this life. I think my hot, messy, sloppy self was the secret sauce.
Welcome to the Our Hen House interview. I'm Jasmine Singer.
I'm Marianne Sullivan.
And we're so excited today. We've been really looking forward to this interview. We're welcoming back to Our Hen House Renee King-Sonnen, who is the founder and executive director of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, also a former Texas cattle rancher turned vegan. And today we're going to be discussing Renee's memoir, which is finally out. It's called Rowdy Girl, Confessions of a Vegan Cattle Rancher, and it was just published by Bloomsbury Publishing. Welcome back to Our Hen House, Renee, and congratulations.
Thank you. Do you have a copy of the book? I have one if you want me to go get it.
We only got an e-copy, so we don't have one to hold up.
You get it. I'm gonna keep talking to our listeners. Marianne can't get me to stop talking. It's been like 20 years. All right. So just a reminder to the Our Hen House viewers and listeners, Rising Anxieties comes out on Tuesdays, the Hen Report on Thursdays, and the long form interview is on Fridays. Bonus content for Our Hen House flock members comes out on Mondays. And Our Hen House is, of course, on YouTube and on any podcatcher. And we're on all of the socials. So follow us, hit subscribe, hit like, comment, all of the things. Do you have the copy?
I do.
Yay. Oh, that is a nice cover. Also, you have fabulous ink. I really like it. What is the tattoo showing?
Well, this one says vegan at the top, and it has the Rowdy Girl logo, and it has Cow Mama.
Oh,
nice.
And then this one over here is like a picture of me, and then Houdini, which I call her my granddaughter.
Oh,
she is Rowdy Girl's firstborn daughter.
Oh, gorgeous. You were on Our Hen House once before, and the book wasn't even
twice before.
Sorry, the book, what? But the book wasn't even like an embryo yet. So I want to just go back in time a little bit. When did the book come about?
Well, the book has been kind of gestating in the background for about 5 years, but it's not been something I thought that I was just going to write a book. It's just that there was a feeling that there was something emerging, but I was very insecure about writing a book. I'm a songwriter, and I write captions and essays and blogs and whatnot, but a book. Yeah. And so, so whenever I finally decided I might write a book, I started down the path of ghostwriters, and I was not happy at all with that process. I didn't like it one bit. And so my friend, who y'all know, Jane Velez Mitchell, she said, mm-hmm. Renee, you write the book. You write it.
Sounds exactly like her.
Yeah, actually, that was a pretty good impression, I have to say. I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to hear more about this, but I want to just say to our listeners who might not know, so it's very, very, very hard to get a book published by a traditional publisher about veganism. I mean, let alone having vegan on the title. Like Renee, when one of the other hats I wear is that I help people get books published. And I went on to Publishers Marketplace and typed in vegan. And in the last year, 2 books that weren't cookbooks sold. And yours was one of them, or, the last few years. And Joanne Molinaro's was another one, the Korean vegan. That's it. And I will tell you, probably like 100 times that at least got pitched. So you somehow broke the glass ceiling there. How did it come to be? And what was that process like for you?
And I have to add, with an excellent publisher.
Yeah, well, truly. I mean, you're doing it.
Yeah. And the whole process was so surreal, honestly, because it was just kind of like I just kept knocking on doors, very gently. I wasn't trying to beat any door down. I was really coming from a place of, if it's meant to be, it will be. When I realized I wasn't going to work with a ghostwriter, I really thought that was the direction I was going to go, because I didn't think I could write a book, but it was so daunting, and it was not delivering what I wanted at all.
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah. And so when Jane said, "You write the book," I was like, "Well, what am I supposed to write?" And she said, "Just write the first chapter and call me and read it to me." I said, "What's the first chapter?" She said, "Just start writing." And so that's what I started doing. Start at the beginning, you know. And so I started writing, and then I would call Jane and I would read her what I wrote. And she was like, "Renee, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. This is good. Keep writing. Keep writing." And so,
Yeah.
because Jane won't blow smoke up your ass, she'll tell you
No.
straight up.
No, she won't. No.
No. And so, anyway, she gave me a lot of encouragement, and so I kept writing and writing and writing and writing and writing until it became into the form of a book that I thought I was finished. And as you know, I could still keep writing. In this book, I could keep editing, but at some point you got to go. It's done. So anyway, I won a contest with the Vegan Publisher in the UK. I entered my book in the Vegan Publisher contest, and I won. And so I got a gift, like a prize of $8,000 to self-publish. And she was going to help me, edit, get the cover, do all the things I needed to do to self-publish on Amazon. Well, during the process of self-publishing, I met my agent, who I didn't know was going to become my agent, Cameron Waters, who is co-producer and co-director of
Oh,
Christ.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cameron's been on the podcast.
That's
yeah.
so cool.
Yeah, so he's a good friend of mine. So, Cameron, and I were talking one day, and he told me about this person that he knew, Amy McConnell, and she's got all kind of impressive background in all kind of publishing houses and stuff. And so I met her, and she read the first chapter of my book and was like, the first chapter of what was then my book, because it's not the first chapter now, it's changed.
Right.
But she read it and she was like, "Renee, you do not need to self-publish. You need a genuine publisher. This is great." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you think I should do next?" And she said, "I'm going to, look for you some agents." And so the next thing you know, she's given me like 3 or 4 different agents to interview. And
I
so
love it.
that's how it started, and so I started interviewing agents, and my first one was with United Talent Agency, and then that didn't work out. This person ended up getting let go of her job like 9 months later, and then I got kind of passed off to this guy that I didn't really jive with at all. And so it was like a year of just like being in limbo, like I didn't know where my book was going. And then, but this guy that I really didn't jive with did get a proposal written and did submit it to all these publishing houses, and Bloomsbury did bite. And
Awesome.
so, but when he did, my agent said, they're not going to give you a big enough upfront bonus. They were giving me a bonus, but it wasn't big enough for their publishing house. And so he pretty much let me go. So here I have a book deal with a publisher and no agent. And I just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I was talking to my friend Amy. This is like a year or so later, a year and a few months. And Amy said, "Gosh darn it." She lives in Nashville. She does the Writers Fest every year. She's an amazing, amazing human. She's, "Gosh darn it, I'm going to be your agent." I said, "You are?" And anyway, so she's been amazing, and she's gotten me, she's put one foot in front of the other for me, helped me get all my editors, which was fabulous. The publicist I have right now is a direct referral from her, and so it
That's
just
great.
became like the doors kept opening.
You've been on the podcast, as I mentioned, twice. Jasmine was probably just remembering you were on really recently, I think in 2023, but you were on in 2015. So we go way back.
Way
Way
back to the
back.
beginning.
And, probably a lot of our listeners know your story. Probably some of them don't. And I would like to get a recap. But I just want to, the book is fascinating. It really is. The glimpse into your journey, the glimpse into your life. And this is no offense meant, Renee. It's actually the reverse. But honestly, one thing that really comes through is that earlier in your life, you were kind of a hot mess. I mean,
Oh my God,
what a
please.
story.
That is an
Your life was
understatement.
chaos. Chaos.
Understatement, Marianne. I was a hot, sloppy mess.
So the thing I'm curious about, relating it to where you are now, do you feel that that part of your life that you went through, and people have to read the book because we couldn't possibly recount every disaster, did that hold you back from getting where you are now sooner, or do you think that was just a necessary part of what you had to go through to understand what you understand now?
Great question. I really do believe that it was all required. It was the ingredients that it took to bake this life. And without those special ingredients, the secret sauce. I mean, I think my hot and messy sloppy self was the secret sauce.
I love
And
that.
yeah, I really do. Because I don't recommend, people, skate the edge of death every time they turn around like I did. But as a result of getting through all that, recovering and coming to the other side, I have so much rich depth in my character now as a result of all the self reflection I've done, all the inner work, deep inner work. And it's been tough, but I've done it.
Well, so if you were to go back to Renee as, let's say, like a 18-year-old and tell her something that, she would never have guessed about her future, what would it be? Like what or should I say, like, what advice would you have for her that she wouldn't listen to?
That she wouldn't listen to. Well, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I had just done a bunch of meth. I was, telling how much I had drank. I used to, I used to do IV drugs as well. And I had just done a boatload of drugs. And I remember standing outside in the parking lot, and this is so vivid in my mind, thinking, this is all required, Renee. It was like a voice said to me, this is all required, Renee. You're going to get through it.
Wow.
So, what I would tell her is, you're going to go through some stuff, but the only way through is through. And what you have to hang on to is faith, and just know that you're going to get through it.
I love that. I mean, that's really beautiful. Marianne, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's all right. I just wanted, it really resonated with me because there have been times when, I wasn't in your league. I'm not gonna lie, but there have been troubled times in my life, and I do think there's something about, if in the worst moments you can hang on to something inside that's a better voice, that really means that you have a good chance of getting through it. And sounds like that's what you were able to do, even in the very worst
Mhm.
disaster.
Yeah.
So tell the other, actually, I was going to ask you about sobriety and going vegan because I'm really interested in that topic. But one thing I wanted to ask first, like, do you feel that, I mean, it would be a shame if everyone, in order to come to this awakening about animals and spirituality and all the other things that you feel like you've come to, had to go through all of that in order to get there. So do you feel like you're in a position to be able to tell people better how to get there without going through all of that? Is that part of your mission?
Yes, I really do believe that, because so many people that have the kind of background that I have, they live in constant shame. They live
Yeah.
in a constant state of, just shame, keeping things secret, not being able to talk about it out loud. And so when people do, like Jane used to tell me, she was my muse in all this. So she doesn't get paid anything. She doesn't get a commission. She's just was a great friend. Jane used to tell me, Renee, nobody wants a prima donna book. You need to tell them all the details, because she knew my story, and so she says, you need to tell it all. And I think that because I've lived through it and I've been bold enough and courageous enough to talk about it out loud, it brings people face to face with someone that they can talk to about their own shame, their own inner demons. and it opens up a door for conversation and relationship. I've known that. I've witnessed that just the last couple of weeks that I've been on this book tour, people opening up and coming to talk to me with tears, and that made it all worth it.
Yeah, I mean, so that is very powerful to be on a book tour and to have other people reflecting on your story, but sort of recognizing that they're actually reflecting on their own story, and
Yeah.
you're the vehicle to get them to that point. I think that's really powerful, especially when we're talking about animals and animal rights. I mean, as a fellow memoirist will say that I think there's a great power in using your own story as a means of creating social change. So tell us about how all of that personal evolution and self-growth overlaps with your awareness about animal rights.
And if I could add also the journey to sobriety.
It all came together. It was, like I said, it was all the ingredients and the secret sauce to become the person I am today. And um, you know, addiction is, gosh, no, you can be addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to eating flesh, to food, to sex. I mean, addictions run rampant in our society. We're always trying to use something to numb our feelings, regardless of what they are. And for me, early on, I was trying to numb out, all the trauma in my home, all the violence. I lived in a constant war zone as a child, from 10 under, and I was always on high alert, always on the brink of, what's going to happen next. What am I going to have to do to save my mom? What am I going to have to do? And how's daddy going to come home? So I'm wired that way, literally wired that way. And so that when I realized living on the cattle ranch that because I had this is a new awareness for me, and I talk about it in the book. But when Tommy and I had remarried this last time, we got married March 25th, 2010, and I had relapsed in the marriage again. And I didn't realize it then, but I do now after self-reflection, that the reason I relapsed was because I didn't want to face what we were doing as cattle ranchers.
Wow.
I didn't want to see, I didn't want to deal with my feelings around all that. And so when I got sober again, and then a few months, like a year and 3 months later, I went vegan, thereabouts. I never planned to go vegan. It wasn't like a moment in time where I said, I'm going to transition to veganism. I think I'll go vegan. I never even thought about it. The day I went vegan was not planned. It happened on Halloween.
What happened? I don't mean to interrupt your story, but this is very compelling.
Yeah, because most people transition, or they hear a story and they think, I'm going to go vegan. It was I lived in a state of oppression, as a cattle rancher's wife, and I didn't even know it because, as a cattle rancher's wife, loyalty to violence is sacred. That loyalty to violence, and it's considered normal. And so I was loyal to what we were doing. I was loyal to my husband as a cattle rancher. The work he was doing was noble. So in that framework, in that belief system, that's where I had to live. That's where I had to exist in order to function as his wife on a cattle rancher. But what happened is me getting to know little baby Rowdy Girl, bottle feeding her, and most people know this story. When I bottle fed her, she began to feed me like an etheric, spiritual experience that I started opening up to the other cows. This was years ago. This is years before I went vegan. Years before I went vegan, I began to feel something for these animals that were in the pasture, the cows. I began to identify them. I could see them. I never noticed them before Rowdy Girl. And so when they started becoming very vivid to me, just like out of the Celestine Prophecy novel, they became vivid. It was like, oh my gosh, and so it took years for that to finally happen. And I started questioning my husband about, what we were doing ethically. I was like, why don't we eat our own animals? Why are we taking animals to the sale barn and buying humane meat from Whole Foods? That kind of thing, right? Why do we do this? And he didn't want to answer these questions. I made him very uncomfortable. But see, something was stirring in me, and I didn't realize it. It was that in AA and Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a principle called "to thine own self be true." And if your insides don't match your outsides, you're probably going to get drunk again. And so learning to have my insides match my outsides has been a real process, because I was always a chameleon. Whatever anybody needed me to be in a relationship, in my family, or whatever, I was always trying to fit in. And when I got sober this last time on January the 8th, 2013, between that time and October 31st, 2014, because I almost died that last time. I mean, I almost died a bunch of times, but this last time was, I had done, I don't know how much IV Demerol and alcohol, a lot. And I almost died on my couch. And so when I came to on January the 8th, 2013, and I talk about that moment in my book, I was like, oh my God, I've got to go to AA today, right? And it just so happened that there was this program playing on TV. It was like 4 a.m. My husband was always flipping channels, watching one news channel after the other, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, you name it. He was always flipping around all the news channels, and he would keep the TV on. And so when I came to at like 3 or 4 a.m, Fox News was on, and Bill O'Reilly, of all people, was talking to 2 drug addicts. And this was in my living room the night that I did all those drugs. And I thought I was like hallucinating, because it was so surreal. Fast forward years later, when I was writing the book, I did the research on that. And lo and behold, Bill O'Reilly did interview 2 drug addicts on January the 8th, 2013. They had just written a book. And I have the whole transcript in my book.
That's so crazy.
That was the day that I didn't even go to AA that day. I went to Narcotics Anonymous, because I knew that if I didn't talk about my drug problem, I would not ever stay sober, because I was very addicted to pharmaceutical medications. And so anyway, that's what started it all. And I knew that I had to, and so what happened is my AA sponsor, emphasized to me that I had to be true to myself. I had to do that. And so these belief systems around normalized violence, around being loyal to my husband's business, they begin to crack, because I began to have different feelings about it, different ideas. And it wasn't that I was going vegan. I was just feeling what was right inside, feeling what felt ethically right. And it wasn't that I thought, well, I'm going to go vegan. I was just like having real problems. I was struggling. And what I now know is I was having a spiritual awakening on a cattle ranch, and I didn't even know it.
So that little voice inside you that you'd noticed in the past just kept getting louder.
Louder and louder and louder. And I started watching slaughterhouse videos as a cattle.
That'll do it. Yeah.
And I did it for months, and I started trying. The reason why
man.
is because Tommy told me it was all PETA propaganda. And, you know how they, the other side tells us it's vegan propaganda? Well, the cattle ranching side has it's PETA propaganda, that vegan propaganda.
Yeah, of
whatever,
course, of course.
and so I was like trying to find the loopholes. I was trying to, trying to see where it wasn't really real, and it was real. And I kept telling Tommy, no, this is not propaganda. This is real.
But aside from watching the slaughterhouse videos, which, some people watch them interchange, some people watch them and it just, they don't really it doesn't really sink in. But you had Rowdy Girl. I mean, it just seems like, let's go back to her for a second, because she's obviously the name of your book, she's the name of your sanctuary. Like, was it just because she was a cow and you got to know her, or was there something? What is it about Rowdy Girl and who she was that engineered this change in you?
Yeah. So I could never have my own children. And, I never really thought about wanting them really until Tommy and I married this second time, and I wanted one child, and I couldn't have them. I was not able to. So, um, and it became a real problem for me. We were going to try to adopt. We were going to try to do some surrogate things and all this. We talked about all of that. And, anyway, so Tommy came home one day and he told me about this little calf, 2 calves actually, up the road that needed a mama. And so I was in this nurturing space of, wanting to take care of. And so I said, "Babies needing a mama?" He said, "Yeah." So he took me up there, and so I bought 2 calves. And it just so happened that during that time period, Tommy was trying to get me more involved in helping out at the cattle ranch, and he thought that, me buying these calves would make me more, of a cattle rancher's wife, hands-on. Uh, it pretty much
That didn't work out that well. Well,
yeah,
it actually did work out extremely well, but not as he planned.
not as he planned. There was a divine plan being planned. But anyway, I brought these 2 calves home, and Bobo, she passed away like within a week and a half or so. She had what they call failure to thrive. She didn't get her colostrum. But Rowdy Girl became like the reason I would get up in the morning. She became, the reason I wanted to hang out in the pastures, during the day and in the evening. I found myself just wanting to be out there all the time, where before I could care less. I was a rhinestone cowgirl type. And so, but Rowdy Girl, got me outside, got me opening gates, got me helping my husband. And, she was such a very rowdy spirit. But there was something Rowdy Girl and I don't have, and she's just not that kind of cow. She's not the kind of cow that wants a lot of touching. She's not a touchy-feely type. She is a down to business. She's a businesswoman. And she is very, very, very serious. And so she and I have a real connection of spirit. She transmitted to me a mission. I got it. And I'm her subject, I bow to Rowdy Girl. She's got me doing work. And I saw things because I saw all this through her eyes. She gave me the vision. Without Rowdy Girl, I would not have this vision. This book would not have happened. Rowdy Girl Sanctuary would not have happened. She's the one that opened my heart, my eyes, my soul to be true to myself. She's the one that helped me get to the truth of who I really am.
And that's a truth that you're now sharing with people on your book tour and just anyone who's picking up a copy of it. Tell me a little bit about who your primary audience is. As you're touring around giving talks, who's in the audience?
It's going to keep expanding. I've got I'm being booked already through July of 27.
Amazing.
So it's going to keep going, and because right now I'm going to a lot of vegan conferences, festivals, universities. The book is considered, it's categorized as academic because the publisher has a vision for this book to be used in classroom settings, to help cultural change and shift, case studies of cattle ranchers transitioning to vegan. So there is a lot of resources in the back of it, but the audience is students wanting to know about a case study. The audience is, of course, vegans wanting to have a resource that they can give to their family, um, to help them just kind of read a story and have an awakening on their own. This is a story about transformation. So people out there that are really, like transformation stories, it's going to appeal to them. It's a love story that it's like it was a very very uncommon that Tommy and I would have endured this experience. My transformation to veganism almost caused our second divorce, and instead, he says it all the time. Veganism was shoved down my throat. I chewed it up and I liked it. You know, I called him a murderer all the time. I don't recommend, the things I did, but it was the secret sauce to him being vegan because, it was our second marriage. And I knew that if I didn't be that very strong force in his life, I don't think he would have changed. But he did, and now he's vegan. So it's a love story. It's a that it really became one. And then it's also for the Christian population because I was raised Christian. I was raised Christian, and when I went vegan, ethically vegan, I began, I've had a lot of experiences around the church, around spiritual things. Um, you know, without giving too much away, I was raped by a preacher, and you have to read about, how that all happened. But I was actually physically raped, and I saw this man physically and sexually abuse his daughters. And so I rejected Christianity when that happened. I still, I still had this fascination and this love for Jesus because I don't think Jesus is religion. Jesus was somebody I think Christianity's got it all wrong with Jesus. I think Jesus was a vegan. And that's the Jesus I see today is a vegan Jesus. And so there's Bible verses in this book that I now see as relevant to being kind to animals. You just have to search it
Totally.
out. They're in there. And then it's also for people in recovery, so I'm going to be speaking to churches. I'm going to be speaking to people. I'm going to be looking for outlets for in recovery circles, not so much Alcoholics Anonymous because you can't really use your own story to promote anything. But there's other, recovery type conferences out there that I'm going to be, looking to get in. But right
That's
now,
great.
yeah, so there's so many different avenues. Yoga, yogis. We've got a collaboration that we're going to be doing with Jiva Mukti Yoga.
I just love the idea of focusing on people in recovery. I think veganism is is the I mean, whether it's a spiritual practice or just an ethical practice, it is it it is counter to uh, addiction. It's the opposite of addiction in so many ways, and they for people who are spiritual, I think it is a spiritual practice, and all of these are things that are so helpful to people who are in recovery. I do you think of your personal spiritual practice as being focused on your awakening to animals? Are they completely linked? Because they are for me. I mean, not that I have a
Mhm.
spiritual practice. I'm not really very spiritual. But if I did, like it just changed my life. It changed who I thought I was in the world. And that has so much to do with spirituality, I think.
It's why I'm here. You know, I thought I was going to be a country western rock and roll, you know, singer. I was going to be a producer, producing Texas women and
There
country.
was the realtor thing.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I was going to do
You
that.
went through many different identities.
Many. I was always an entrepreneur. I could do a lot of things. But what I found out once I went vegan for the animals, once I had that ethical awakening, I realized it was like, gosh, all of my experience has been for this moment, every bit of it. It required that on the job training. It required me to, because I had no problem getting in front of thousands of people or just a few people. I did that in my life. I've always been, out front, whether it be, as a performer or what. I've always done it, and Yet I'm an introvert, I'm an extroverted introvert because it's a talent. It's not something I learned to do. It's a gift. And I didn't realize until I went vegan for the animals that all these gifts, these inherent God-given gifts were for this moment in my life. And so I'm here for it. And so I'm taking care of myself. I'm 68 years old. I recently completed a 22-day water fast in February.
You look
Wow.
great, Renee. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm mostly, fruitarian, I eat mostly fruit and salads, make my own dressings.
How was the water fast? How did you get through that?
I had a coach, Lauren Lockman. He does group fast, and he's been doing them for over 30 something years. He's taken thousands upon thousands of people successfully through. And so I've known him for the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. So I've done a lot of research on him, watched his videos. He used to have the center in Costa Rica, and I was going to do the water fast there. But anyway, it's some things happened, and I ended up doing it online with a group of people. And I did it right here sitting in this chair.
Wow. That's amazing.
21 days of water only with a good coach.
That's amazing.
I've never gotten past 3.
Yeah, well, because
as far as
that's
I've
when
gotten.
the headaches and all the things you have to get through start probably. I want to totally switch gears for a second because you have this beautiful picture of Jesus behind you with all the animals. And I would love to just talk about your Christianity. I would love if you could explain what's gone wrong so that, we live in this world where so few people see Jesus in a light of compassion. And I will say that Marianne wrote this question and said that the next part of the question should be, have they read the Sermon of the Mount? But as an atheist Jew, I have no
Sermon
idea.
on the Mount.
I just wanted to say, I don't know what that sentence means, but please enlighten me, because Jesus should be enlightening others about animal rights. And apparently people are missing the memo.
They missed the memo. Well, it's on purpose. The Bible, there's a scripture in the Bible, Jeremiah 8. I think it's Jeremiah 8:8. I know a lot about the Bible, but I tend to forget Bible verses.
Well, we're not going to call you on it, Renee. I can promise you.
But I think it says, beware of the lying pen of the scribes. Because as a young child growing up all the way through high school and beyond, I studied the Bible. I've read it. I've wrote it. I've ran scriptures. I'm a philosopher type, and so I always did that. The problem is I just couldn't get saved enough. There's a song called "Washed in the Blood of the Lamb," and I used to think I never got it right. I would try to get saved. I would go get saved, and I would imagine all the blood, and for some reason, it just never was enough. And when I went vegan, it was just the opposite. No more blood. We don't need blood to be saved. We don't need bloody flesh in our bodies. We need light. We need love. We need an ethical conversion, because all of that bloodlust that's in the Bible is deliberately infiltrated by those priests that used animals in ritual sacrifice for money. Animal agriculture is the opposite side of the coin of ritual slaughter. It's like
Totally.
That's what it became. So it's considered sacred. It's considered holy. And so I just know that today I'll look for all the lost teachings, because there's 13 years missing out of Jesus's life in the Holy Bible. So
it's always been so weird that it skips over his whole adolescence.
It's on purpose, because if they would have kept that documented narrative about his life in the Bible, we would be believing in this is what I believe. This is what I've studied. We'd be believing in reincarnation. We'd all be animal rights activists. None of us would be eating animals. None of us. There
So they
wouldn't be
edited
like
they edited out the good stuff. But some of it got left in. I was just going to say, when you're talking about washed in the blood of the lamb, and that is a pretty gruesome image, I have to say.
I
Not familiar
know.
with that song. That's probably not, because Catholics, we don't all have the same songs. But it just put it in context for me, the Last Supper, when I'm sorry, I apologize to everyone who's not into the details here, but at the Last Supper, when he talks about, this is my body, and he holds up the bread, and this is my blood, and he holds up the wine, and that's what they do in every single Catholic mass. That's like he's explicitly saying, we don't sacrifice animals. This is a symbolic thing that I'm showing you now, and that's how we do it. Like, it's bread and wine. It's not animal flesh. Anyway, that just occurred to me.
Yeah,
And the other thing about the Sermon on the Mount, which I have to tell you because I tell everybody, because it's my favorite thing I ever thought of, and I thought of it. I can't say I'm the only person who ever thought of it, but I thought of it first. Is that, like, the Sermon on the Mount, the loaves and the fishes? He was predicting cultivated fish. Like, he took 3 dead fish who were no longer alive, and he turned them into fish that would feed everybody. Like, how clear did he have to get? Really,
I
how
know.
clear?
How clear? How clear? But the thing is,
I mean,
the
and again, I apologize, everybody, for getting into the details. I'm
no,
sure
it's
there are many
perfect.
people who
No,
are like,
if you
"What?
haven't,
What is she talking about?"
no, you're great, Marianne. You're spot on because think about, you've seen Christspiracy, right? You had Cameron on.
I have
So
indeed. I have
yeah,
indeed.
so Christspiracy, they lay it all out. I mean,
Absolutely.
Jesus, when I realized that Jesus flipped those tables over at, you know, at the temple when they were bringing all those animals in for slaughter, and he went in and freed the animals, it was not because of the money changers, it was because of the violent ones. That one word that was discovered when they went to,
Right. Right.
I think it was Jerusalem, that one Hebrew word, I believe it was, peritz, it meant violent ones, not money changers.
Yeah.
So
No, it's something
Jesus,
that if people haven't seen the movie, they really have to. And I'm so, like, if you're not interested in the details of Christianity, like, the rest of it will be fast, because it's all fascinating, whether it's your culture or not.
it
And
is.
speaking of culture, I really loved your story about Thanksgiving, because I think that is really on the ground activism, and like, handling the family. That's the first question everybody has when they're contemplating going vegan. And I took this quote out because you talk about, like, being there, not being obnoxious and having your whole family hate you from now on, but also not being quiet. And I think that's a really hard note to hit. And I took this quote out: sometimes being fully yourself in a room that doesn't reflect your values is the loudest kind of activism there is. Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for quoting that because when I first went vegan, I was loud, I was obnoxious. My family didn't want to be around me because, I I don't know, it was like I became a vampire in reverse. And it was like I talk about that in the book as well. I became, instead of craving blood, I craved light. I craved life. And so my insides were on my outsides when I first went vegan. I could hardly stand being around anybody eating animal flesh. And I've always been a family oriented person. I love being around family. So when I would be around them and they would be praying over this big turkey that, was the body of a being that I had at the sanctuary. I mean, I had animals like that at the sanctuary, and I was like, I would start crying at the table, and I would make everybody's experience, they wanted me to leave, and I did, time and time again. So, what happened for me, Kip Anderson helped me with this, the producer, co-producer of, Cowspiracy, What the Hell, Seaspiracy, Christspiracy, all those. But he helped me, because he's on our board. He's been on our board for 11 years since we started. And I was really struggling. And he said, Renee, sometimes the best way to be an activist is just to be yourself in the middle of the family, be who you are. and just be yourself. And and I was and I struggled with it. We had a long conversation, but what I came away with was the next time I was with my family, I was going to bring a bunch of food, like a bunch, not just a little side dish here and there. I cooked my entire Thanksgiving meal for me and Tommy, and I took it and enough to share. So I started doing this. I started bringing a lot of food and laughter to the events. I would pray and meditate before I went, and I would create a barrier around me so that I would not be affected by what their choices were. And I also agreed to be in prayer. Even though I was talking, I would be in prayer for the animals. I would be honoring them. I would be witnessing them. So while I'm with my family, I live in a state of witness, observation, prayer, a lot of good vegan food. I try to laugh a lot, bring humor into things. Um, and do my best not to be that vegan that I wouldn't have wanted somebody to be towards me. Because just face it, it is a cultural, deeply rooted, traditional root. Our entire planet is rooted in violence as normalized, and it to pluck up that taproot, it's not going to happen when you just, if we just treat people bad. And
Right.
so I do my best to live my ethics out loud. No?
I mean, it's very inspiring to hear the way you deal with your family, because Marianne and I get questions not infrequently from people who don't quite know how to handle those situations where we are in a room and there are, corpses on the table, and how are we supposed to live our truths when our truth in that moment is trauma. I'm very inspired by the way that you have managed to find joy regardless of what you're being faced with. And I guess I'm wondering, and I started this interview by asking you what advice you would have to young Renee. I would like to flip that question and say, what advice do you have for future Renee, for, let's say, Renee in 20 years, who,
Yeah.
maybe who has obviously multiple bestsellers by the time you offer her advice? Like, what is it that you want to really hold on to in your best moments, and remember 20 years from now?
What a great question, especially coming towards somebody that lives so much in the moment. 20 years, I will be 88. And so if I could give my 88-year-old self some advice, I would tell her, that it's all worth it. It's all been worth it. That sometimes my, sometimes your body is going to feel like you just want to break. You just want to stop. You just want to like retreat. Uh, but, this is why you were here. This is why you were born. This is your purpose. This is why you were here. This is your dharma, as they talk about in yoga, your life's work. And, you know, in your 88-year-old body, I hope you've, done another water fast or two, still eating like a fruitarian, and that, you still are able to take walks and see the animals, and that you're still, talking out loud and in public about this work and this mission. And I hope and pray my husband is still with me.
Well, he will be, because you not only saved his soul, well, he helped as well, but you saved his life going vegan. I shouldn't say that. It's not like vegans never get sick, but you increased his odds a lot.
Yeah, he's
Right.
much better than he used to be, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And to take it easy, 88, I run pretty hard, but I also do a lot of self-care, and I would thank her, my 88-year-old self, for doing that, like for practicing self-care.
I love that. And I'm imagining you with mango like dripping down your face, just so you know. I'm hoping that that image reflects reality, because when I hear that people are mostly fruitarian, I like to imagine that their face is really sticky. Is your face frequently sticky?
It is frequently sticky, yes.
Okay, good. All
I
right. Well, on
frequently
that
over the sink.
Okay. Well, on that note, tell us again the name of the book and where our viewers and our listeners can get a copy and stay on top of your incredible efforts, Renee.
The book is Rowdy Girl: Confessions of a Vegan Cattle Rancher. There it is. And it's also it's available on Amazon. It's available on the Bloomsbury website. You can get it off Barnes and Noble bookshop, and it's also on Audible now, and I'm reading it.
Nice.
Oh, great. Great.
Yeah, you can get it on Audible and Spotify.
I love it. That is so great. Well, Renee, thank you so much for coming back to our hen house and updating us. It's always such a joy and pleasure to chat with you. And big, huge congratulations on this book. I know that it is already changing lives, and I know that it will continue to. And I hope that you come back before we meet 88-year-old Renee, although I want you to come back then as well. Although if we're still doing our hen house, Marianne will kill me, so I will be dead by then.
I think there's a really good chance I will be dead as well.
I beg your pardon.
No, you can't do that.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you, Renee.
Right. How long do I have to go?
I do want to say one last thing.
Yes, please.
I just want to say that, if I'm anywhere in your neck of the woods, while I'm touring for the book, please come out, introduce yourself. If there's any place out there that you want me to come and you think would be a good thing for me to do, one thing leads to another. So
Yeah.
I am open to showing up, for the book tour,
That's great.
And how about for our listeners? I mean, is that possibility if they have a possibility of a place that you could give a talk, can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, get in touch with me. Just email me. Renee at rowdygirlsanctuary.org. And I'll be in New York City in August.
Okay,
like 5 days. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, that is something that our listeners can definitely do, and I just want to say that really does make a big difference, because not only is that how authors get their gigs, but Renee is someone who should be in front of people. I mean, like you Renee, you speak to a particular demographic that I don't think is necessarily being reached enough, and that's sort of part of your special sauce, as you were saying. So I'll focus on the 46-year-old lesbians.
I think that older women, not old women, but older women are just the most powerful, largely untapped group of because women reach a point in life where they just have no more fucks to give, and most of them love animals. So
this fucks to give.
Yeah.
That's true. Entitled for a book right there.
Yeah. There you go. Well, on that note, thank you again, Renee. Stick on with us, because we want to do a brief bonus content interview with you for our flock. And if you're listening or watching and you're in our flock, then make sure you tune in on Monday for that. If you're listening and you want access to that bonus content, then join our flock. We have a lot of fun over here. ourhenhouse.org/support. And make sure you catch our episode of Rising Anxieties, which comes out the day after bonus, Tuesday. We'll see you on all of the socials at Our Hen House, and we'll talk to you soon.